In society, so as applied to EquiSeq, there's been a change in horse ownership. So it used to be, if a horse couldn't do what it was purchased for, if it couldn't do the work that it was desired for, people got rid of it one way or another. And what's changed in the last century or so is that we now have the era of the forever horse. People have a horse, they work with it, but if the horse is no longer capable of being ridden or worked, people keep it anyway. They pay extra vet bills, they pay extra costs for all of these things for a horse that does nothing but sit there and eat grass plus expensive supplements. So that's changed. And what that means is people would like to keep their horses healthy as long as possible. And in finance, this is an interesting situation. There is essentially no federal funding for horse work through NIH or NSF. It is a completely neglected species. So this is and you can count the number of academics on your fingers. And this is an opportunity because of the absence of funding, not the presence of adequate funding. That means that a small company can get into this field and move the needle a lot. And that's what we've tried to do.
Good morning. Welcome to 1 Million Cups. Wednesday morning. We have some people online. Do you remember Brian Blondeau? He used to come here a lot. He went to Florida. Brian, which city were you in this morning?
I was in St. Petersburg, the 1 Million Cups.
And yep. How do they compare to us?
I gave them some recommendations. They don't introduce themselves, which I really missed. Yeah. So they're going to take that on, I think. But other than that, a lot of good energy. Really, really great. Really fun. Awesome. Same series, same way they do things like you.
Yeah.
Really cool.
We're all supposed to follow a model, so that's what we do. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
So I hope everyone checked in. You do get prizes for checking in. The third time that you check in, you get a pen, and the 6th time you get a notebook. Thank you. And after that, you don't continue to get prizes, but we do appreciate that you check in. They do track our metrics, and it's really important. I also do a manual account, and the manual account is always much higher than the check-ins, so you can help our metrics online if you check in with the app or with the QR code. So the mission of 1 Million Cups is to lower the barrier of access to education, resources, and connection for all new and aspiring entrepreneurs throughout the U.S. The model is the same in every city. Yeah. We work together by creating a consistent program for each 1 Million Cup presenter nationwide, while also highlighting the uniqueness and value proposition for the local startup community. As Paul says, we're the best in New Mexico because we're the only one. Hi, guys. But as you could tell from Brian this morning, you're welcome to visit 1 Million Cups across the U.S. Some of them are still doing hybrid like us, so Zoom and in person. So like Brian today, he went to one this morning in person in Florida, and now he's joining us online. Key pillars, these are presentations, not pitches. And we do try to coach you through that process. We give you some recommendations on what your slide deck should include. And we want to make sure that you're not coming up here to pitch for money or customers, because that's not the Kaufman's model. These are authentic connections, not networking. You're not going to see a bunch of people running around to see how many business cards they can hand out. We welcome conversations. This is run for the community, by the community, and we try to be radically and intentionally inclusive. Our mission is all written out. You guys can read that sometime, but it's basically the same. We would love to have you apply to present. There's a URL on the screen. We also have some business cards with this URL. And the requirements from Kaufman are basically in business, 5 years or less, product or service and market. So as Paul says, you have to have sold something to someone other than your mother. We do make exceptions. We've made exceptions in the past for companies in business as long as 30 years that have had to pivot, especially after COVID. You saw a lot of businesses changing their business model. And we always have our presenters back to hear about their updates and what they're doing new with their business, as we're going to see today with Paul and EquiSeq. Here's our organizing team. We have Paul Sauter with EquiSeq. I'm Lisa Adkins, COO of Fat Pipe. Eric Renz-Whitmore works for the city of Santa Fe, so he's rarely here in person, but he does do our newsletters. So the emails that you get or from the platform announcing our speaker each week are from Eric. Laura Jeffson works here. She's the director of finance here at FatPipe. She comes in every morning, every Wednesday morning really early and does most of the setup for us all by herself, makes your coffee as well. Danielle Slepeski, the best end-of-life guide and death doula I know. She's here today in the front row. Keiko and Oscar, the founders of Legacy Family Documentaries. You don't see them here in person much either, but they do help me edit the videos on the back end. So every week we record and the videos get edited by Oscar actually, and then we put them on YouTube so that you can go back and review your videos and share them with your friends. And then we have Dr. Norm Dodson and Barbara Dawson, new to the organizing group. And so they're being trained by Kaufman and us on the backend platform. And they are going to start managing all of the applications on the platform and will be available for coaching soon. Our sponsors, FatPipe BBQ, Stuart Rose has opened up his facility since day one. We've been here, July, I think it's 12 years, and 1 Million Cups has been here almost that long as well. Foundation for Sustainable Living. Thank you so much for the coffee. We love your coffee. Dry Heat Photography. Deanna takes our pictures every week and posts them on Facebook. We appreciate that as well. Beyond Energy. If the donuts aren't enough, you can have an energy drink. More Than Organized, Miriam brings our creamer. Noventum Custom Software brings our donuts. And Minuteman Press does all of our printing. I'm trying to get Carrie to come in and present. So thank you for joining us. I'm going to hand it over to Danielle to introduce our speaker today.
Good morning, everybody. I am really excited to introduce Paul Sauter today, the COO and owner and founder and everything of EquiSeq. I've had the pleasure of getting to know Paul a lot better over the last 5-6 months or so, and it's been really awesome. So I'm really excited. Come on up, Paul. Let's hear where you're at today and what's going on. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Paul Sauter, founder and chief scientific officer of EquiSeq. There it is. Does it work?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a second. Okay.
EquiSeq is an equine services company for people who want better horses. EquiSeq's DNA test is a genetic screen that identifies horses at risk for a muscle disease before they develop symptoms. And unlike muscle biopsy, EquiSeq's DNA test is non-invasive. We just need a hair sample. So that's who we are and what we do and what we sell. But what does it mean? This is Christine and her horse Carlo. And this photograph was taken when Carlo was 2 years old. He had just won Supreme Young Stock Champion at the big county show in Essex. So this is a defining moment early in his career. Best youngster in the show. You see Christine just beaming, thinking about the future that she has together with Carlo. But it was not to be. At 3 years old, Carlo began to develop symptoms of lameness. This was his last show. They did every veterinary test they could think of without a definitive answer. And finally, Christine sent off a hair sample to our patent licensee in Germany, Generatio. It got back this result. Carlo has one copy of the P4 genetic variant, and that's not good. And his symptoms got worse. And Christine made a video of the end stages of his disease. I am not going to show the video, but I'm going to show you some still photos of that. In the end stage of the disease, Carlo's unable to remain standing. He's trying to feed, but he keeps buckling and getting back up and buckling and getting back up. And Christine and her veterinarian decided it was time, and Carlo was euthanized at 5 years old. Carlo had a half-sibling, euthanized at 5 years old with the same symptoms, and has 2 other affected half-siblings. At the end of the video, Christine has an ask for horse breeders. She says, what I ask of you horse breeders is this: please, please test your horses before breeding. I know there's a lot of research that needs to be done. So I think about Christine and people like her every day. Research that needs to be done. I'm going to try to keep the science to a minimum here. If you have questions about that, ask me about the P4 genetic variant affecting Carlo at the end of the talk. So how did I get here? All right, here's the past 45 years on one slide. There's 4 phases. I got my PhD in genetics in 1980 when I was 25. I had a career as a Drosophila geneticist with some academic appointments. And in 2000, I made a transition to bioinformatics. I got a job at the Jackson Laboratory, which is the center of the universe for mouse genetics, where I did mammalian genomics and bioinformatics. In 2011, I moved to the University of New Mexico, where I had a position there for a while. And in 2015, I founded EquiSeq. So while my career was going on, a couple of important things happened. The Human Genome Project was started in the early 1990s and completed in 2002. That was a project that people thought was impossible, and it was spectacularly successful. That success continued to roll on until we reached a milestone that people had dreamed of for a long time, the $1,000 human genome, and now it's even cheaper than that. So that opened up a lot of opportunities for companies. And any opportunity for a startup is defined by three forces. There's technology, society, and finance. So in technology, I just told you that there was a revolution in genomics from NIH and NSF. And in addition to collapsing the cost of sequencing a mammalian genome, they also made public a massive archive of genomic data. You used to have to have an NIH grant to look at it. Now anybody looking at it can look at it anywhere. So some student in Thailand sitting in a Starbucks with a laptop can look at the same data that the guys at Harvard look at. So that's been a fantastic opportunity. It's opened up a lot of possibilities for startups. In society, so as applied to EquiSeq, there's been a change in horse ownership. So it used to be, if a horse couldn't do what it was purchased for, if it couldn't do the work that it was desired for, people got rid of it one way or another. And what's changed in the last century or so is that we now have the era of the forever horse. People have a horse, they work with it, but if the horse is no longer capable of being ridden or worked, people keep it anyway. They pay extra vet bills, they pay extra costs for all of these things for a horse that does nothing but sit there and eat grass plus expensive supplements. So that's changed. And what that means is people would like to keep their horses healthy as long as possible. And in finance, this is an interesting situation. There is essentially no federal funding for horse work through NIH or NSF. It is a completely neglected species. So this is and you can count the number of academics on your fingers. And this is an opportunity because of the absence of funding, not the presence of adequate funding. That means that a small company can get into this field and move the needle a lot. And that's what we've tried to do. So we're a science company. So there's two pieces of that, the science part and the company part. On the science part, there are two really big milestones for a science company, and that is patents and peer-reviewed publications. So we have filed 2 patents, and we are on the brink of having our first patent issued. They tell me before the end of the year, but that's a forward-looking statement. On peer-reviewed publications, we're making good progress there. If you want to hear one of the stories, ask me about P4 in the Q&A. Let's talk about the company now. This is our current focus. Private equity investors that look at the potential of investing in a company are really, really interested in sales because that's the one thing that's not subject to fluff, And so not only do they want to see your sales, they want to see the increase, the rate of increase of your sales, right? You're nodding because you're in sales. The sales is real. Everything else is, is hype, right? So a McDonald's franchise clears about $1 million top line revenue annually. And EquiSeq is a quarter pounder. So we'd like to do better than that. We have fixed costs. As we increase sales, our margins will improve. So those are the 2 things outside investors are looking at, and we're courting them. Okay, we analyzed customer data over the past 4 years to see who we're actually dealing with and on a quantitative basis. I had a good impression because I'm talking to all these people, but our board wanted to see the numbers, and here we are for the past 4 years. About 80% of our test buyers are one-time users. So these are people that have a horse that has symptoms and they want to see what's wrong with it, if they can tell, or they're doing a pre-purchase exam because they never want one of these affected horses again. And they're making sure as part of the pre-purchase exam that it doesn't have any of these variants. Our repeat customers are about 20% of our sales, and they are mainly breeders, but also include some veterinarians. It turns out if you take the tests bought by the repeat customers, they're about equal to the tests bought by the one-time customers. So it makes more sense to market to the repeat customers. So what we're doing right now is preparing for in-depth interviews. Thank you, Barbara Dawson, for our repeat customers. And we're going to use that to develop an online survey for everybody else. And everyone who participates in the interview or the survey gets a gift card toward the purchase of one of our tests. So that's what we're going to do to exploit our customer data. going forward to improve sales. The other thing that was brought up to me in the Arrowhead tech sprint is productization. It's a word that I hate, but I like the concept, right? So right now, if you want a genetic test, you got a horse, right? You go online, you buy, and you say, what do I do to get my test done? And it says, well, pull some hair off your horse, put it in a plastic bag, fill out the paper order form, and mail it in. Does that sound like a company to you, or does that sound like a science fair project, right? So we decided to be a company. And imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. There's a great company called Embark that sells a dog DNA test kit, and you can find out what is in the breed mix for your puppy, although that's kind of like astrology. And you can also find out, the health thing. So they spent a lot of money developing this kit. So we decided to just simply imitate them. And here is the EquiSeq prototype for a horse DNA test. And inside is very, very clever. So the Embark test, as you take it apart, it's 1, 2, 3. There's QR codes, it's software enabled. It's very, very clever. And it all works really nicely. And we have Matthew at Noventum has actually tested his dog through this, but not only that, filmed the entire interaction with the kit. So we know how it all works and how customers interact with it and where there's any bottlenecks, but it's really well designed. So we decided to steal it. I didn't get here by myself. It's a pleasure to thank my team. I have a great scientific collaborator, Jeremy Edwards at the University of New Mexico. I have a wonderful board, and they've been very patient with me. We also have some great collaborations with universities around the world. And I'm telling you guys, I've had great interactions with the community here. So let's start with the Arrowhead Center at NMSU. They had a fantastic couple of programs that I went through. The New Mexico Angels is a resource that never stops giving, and I'm going to plug them any time I can. C&M Ingenuity's had these wonderful events to meet people and discover new resources. It's also a pleasure to thank Brian Steiner, who's building our software, Graham Jarabek, who's helping with financial modeling, Eric Lee Smith, who's helped with strategy, David Wilson, who's our designer, and Danielle Slupewski, who's helped me with some personal development. So what I've shown you is that there's been a revolution in genetics that's made this opportunity possible. We've developed tests that predict muscle disease in horse, and we're currently improving our marketing. And one other thing I should tell you about EquiSeq that I left out earlier, this is a unique opportunity because genetic testing of non-human animals is not regulated. That means that we can take our test directly from the lab bench to the market without having experts and taking years to go through some regulatory agency. So that's a fantastic opportunity. And I've shown you how we're working on our marketing efforts to grow EquiSeq. So we are EquiSeq, the future of horses.
Well, thank you. That was awesome. So what's the one thing that this community can do for you today? I'm jumping in there.
Okay, you're gonna ask that one first, right? Because we're gonna get into science and then it's all gone. Okay, so the big challenge in this company is, I like horse people, but they're not scientists, right? And they're actually, I used to wonder when I taught genetics, what it would be like, to talk to people before the rediscovery of Mendelism in 1900. And I do that now on a daily basis, right? So it is challenging for someone working in genomics to talk to horse people that have their own collection of folklore. So what I'm most looking for is connections to horse people, horse breeders, equine vets, that kind of stuff. If anybody knows anybody like that, please connect me.
Yes, I wanted to get that out there so people have an idea too of what we can come up here and bring you as far as feedback and whatnot. So now if everybody's got questions, please come up and introduce yourself. Make sure you've got the mic in front of your mouth like I was not appropriately modeling a moment ago. Thank you, Barry.
Hello. Miriam Ortiz, More Than Organized. The repeat business with the breeders and the vets, I think that's great. We talked earlier, I've been following some horse people online, and I realized the other day too that there's this whole other piece of the repeat business that we've never talked about. The AI, the actual people that do the AI, because they have all the little tests in there
AI in this instance means artificial insemination,
Right.
not artificial intelligence.
Correct. There's a whole
It
service
predates
industry there.
artificial intelligence.
That I wasn't aware of. I thought the breeders did it themselves, but they actually hired that out. So I was just going to point out that that might be another entry for repeat business to talk to.
You know, that's a good suggestion. So we've looked at another set of potentially high volume people. There's a lot of weird stuff that goes in the horse industry that's not commonly known. So for example, if a quarter horse is a champion performing quarter horse and is a mare, she can't take 13 months out from her performing career to have a foal. And it turns out horse reproductive biology is interesting. Implantation only occurs on day 37. So any high school intern can wash out a fertilized embryo and they can implant it in a surrogate mare. There are surrogacy farms that have nothing but pseudo-pregnant mares waiting for these $100,000 to $150,000 embryos to be implanted. If you're going to spend that amount of money on an embryo, what's a $300 test? And they can be tested prior to implantation. It's possible to do tests on embryos. We haven't done that yet, but it's certainly possible. Yeah. And that way people could get a high end, you know, without the defect. The other thing is cloning operations. People are kind of quiet about that, but there's a lot of cloned horses out there right now. And in some cases that is frowned upon by breed societies and people deal with that by lying.
Yeah. I haven't seen a lot of that, but I assume it is.
You won't see it online because they don't want you to know what's going on.
Hi, Deanna Vincent with Driving Photography. So my question is the variant that you're testing for, is this a thing that has been like common or problematic in the horse population forever, or is it becoming more problematic as a result of like selective breeding and like diseases in purebred dogs? Is it something like that? And also, are there other things you're testing for as well, or just that?
So our current panel is a test for 6 variants, and we can tell how old they are by how they're distributed across breeds that were formed at different times. So horse domestication started about 5,000 years ago, and these variants were present in the original horse population because they're present in widely separated breeds. And the problem is that they tend to be late onset, right? So like if you wonder, like, how can anything that's harmful like this be present at reasonably high frequencies in the horse population? And that's because it doesn't come on till later. So like there's a high incidence of Alzheimer's disease in humans, there's a high incidence of breast cancer, but those things don't hit humans until after people have reached the end of their reproductive life over the course of human history, right? So this is late onset that way. It is not selected against, and so it's hitchhiked, right? And yeah, so there's 6 variants we test for, and we have plans to find a lot more because, you know, there's a lot of data coming out. Find more. Does that work?
Yeah.
Somebody asked me about P4, but it wasn't you. Somebody will.
Okay.
I am John Boersma. Paul, 2 questions. One is your title is Chief Scientific Officer, but I noticed on the slide there was no CEO. Are you the guy?
Sadly, yes. So the last time I gave a Million Cups talk, you know, what can this community do for you? We said, we're looking for a CEO. And you know, one of these CNN ingenuity things, my pitch was, you know, my last of my 60 seconds was we're looking for a CEO. We had 4 people talk to us. One of them's now on our board. One of them gave me advice on financial modeling. One I'm in frequent contact with, right? And so that worked out really well. But let me, you know, I've been through these accelerators and they never tell you, just bring the index card version of what you learned and tell everybody else. So one of the things that I can tell you that I learned from these accelerators is if you're a company that's scaling and is going to get outside funding, and you want a CEO that's going to be the person that hands you off for an acquisition, you need $2 million in the bank, right? Because that person wants to replace the whole team, and you know, so you can't just get someone like you to be the CEO, because then when the outside people look at you, there's just like, okay, there's just 2 guys on a science fair project. One has the title CEO, and the other has CSO, right? So if you talk to potential CEO candidates, the ones we would want say, you're not ready yet. Wait till you're not just a quarter pounder, but there's the drink and the fries and the toy. You get the whole Happy Meal, then we'll be your CEO plus $2 million in the bank, right? So I would love to have a CEO. If someone who's interested in this and has a connection in the horse industry wants to be the CEO, hey, be my guest, I'll buy you lunch, right? So yeah, that position is still open. So I'm acting CEO.
What's pacing your growth?
What's pacing our growth? Well, I mean, the main thing right now is we need peer-reviewed publications. So if you think of the horse market, there's horse buyers, there's breeders, there's veterinarians and breed societies. The veterinarians, it's very top down. It's like the military or US medical stuff for human medicine. The person at the top says this is so, and everybody salutes, right? So right at the moment, because we don't have peer-reviewed studies supporting these variants, the vets are very opposed to our existence. They don't think that somebody without a DVM should be able to just come in and turn the whole industry upside down. You know, everybody in this business says, oh, you're startup, you're so disruptive. What happened to you when you were a little kid and you were disruptive? You've got a timeout, right? So kind of that's where we are right now. And we will see when our first peer-reviewed publications come out, whether these vets are sincere in their arguments, and that was all that was keeping them from liking us, or that's just what they're saying because they don't like us anyway. We'll find out. But that's the major impediment right now, is getting the first peer-reviewed publications out. I think people are going to be very surprised by what we have.
I'm going to take a question online real quick from Aaron.
All right.
Aaron, can you unmute and ask your question? It's a good one.
Yes, hello, good morning. So P4 is a bacteriophage, correct? Are there any antibiotics that can help the horses?
P4 is lab slang for myosin 3S42L. So it's a genetic variant in myosin 3. P4 is also a phage, as you know.
Oh, it's phage?
It infects bacteria, not horses. So it's just our lab slang instead of saying myosin 3S42L. It is a variant. Do you want the whole P4 story, or you just want a clarification?
Yeah, why not? Yes.
Oh, thank you so much.
I'm also a scientist as well.
The check's in the mail. All right.
You want slides? Here we go. Did you say you want slides,
Yep.
Paul?
Yep.
All right, hold on. I think I closed them.
My slides, not yours.
Yeah. Stand by.
Okay, so one of the things that's enabled us to do this is that all living things are related. They're descended from a single common ancestor, and they all use the same means of encoding genetic information. And muscle is a really ancient function. So go to the black slide, way down.
I'm gonna let you navigate.
Okay, I'll navigate. All right, there we go. More research. That's a zebrafish, not a horse. Okay, so all living things are related, descended from a single common ancestor. So the way that's usually expressed is how far are we from the single common ancestor? So human to mice diverged about 80 million years ago, human from horse about 100 million years ago, and human from zebrafish about 375 million years ago. Okay, that doesn't mean a lot to you, but I'll say that these are all vertebrates. I'm going to show you a picture now and ask if anyone can tell me what species this muscle is from. You can't, and neither can I. So human muscle, horse muscle, mouse muscle, zebrafish muscle, it all looks exactly like this. And, you know, I can't tell you what species this is from, and most people who work in biology can't either. And that means that all the proteins that make up that muscle are the same. So when we find human genes that are associated with muscle gene variants, we look at horse, do we see mutations in those genes? And sometimes we do, and those are in our tests. The most challenging case, it came from a bioinformatics prediction. We thought a gene should be involved in muscle development. There was no evidence for that in humans and mice. So we went to zebrafish because it's possible to do very cool experiments. Myosin 3 has, as I said, it's not associated with any disease-causing variants in humans. It's not, there's no mouse knockouts, so there's really no information on it. If you knock out the expression of the gene in zebrafish, the top shows a normal 3-day-old zebrafish embryo. The bottom shows one that was injected with antisense RNA to stop the expression of myosin 3. And it has contractures. It has abnormal muscle development. If you reduce the dose of antisense RNA to allow escapers, the adults, when challenged in an exercise test that is swimming through methyl cellulose, which has resistance, so they're swimming harder, their muscles start to break apart. So when you see the white arrows, the muscles are separating. So that's the first evidence that myosin 3 is required for muscle development and function in any species. So we're following that up by CRISPR editing the zebrafish to exactly reproduce the horse mutation. And our collaborators in Australia have done that, and they're waiting to do electron microscopy, exercise tolerance, all that kind of stuff. Within a year of publishing that, there will be human patients that have mutations in that gene. There's freezers full of DNA, people that have undiagnosed muscle disease. Okay, thanks for the question. This might be a good segue.
So Paul, I've known you for about 8 years now, or 9 years, and watched you grow and being able to explain things to audiences, and we're getting better and better at it. The other week we had a presenter talk to us about AI and encourage us to start looking at chat AI and so forth. The other day I went to my financial advisor actually, and he just volunteered.
Is he human?
He's human. And he volunteered how he's using it, which is actually interesting and possibly applicable to you. And what he does is he says he has some kind of like, say he's got to prepare for a difficult to explain strategy to a customer. And one of the examples was a couple who have very different backgrounds educationally and their interests are different. And so he takes that strategy and he writes it up in like what he's talking about. Then he has chat AI reproduce, like explain it in the different people's contexts. And then he can kind of look at that and say, have a meeting and be able to kind of talk both sides of that room and have it work. And I'm wondering have you thought about that? And maybe is that applicable in your business?
Yeah, one of our board members, really pitched ChatGPT to me. He flipped it open. He said, okay, I'm going to ask them, to write a letter, soliciting for a nonprofit that helps horses. It was pretty good. He says, can you do this at a 6th grade level? And it instantly comes back at a 6th grade level. So we might use it as a tool in some of our customer facing communication, but I'll also say that a lot of what we're doing is possible because of AI, because the big payoff in AI was in 2021 when AlphaFold happened. So the big problem in biology was predicting 3D protein structure from the sequence, which was like impossible. And AlphaFold finally happened in 2021. And so it is possible to predict the structure of proteins that have not been solved and to predict what the effects of particular mutations would be, which is what we're particularly interested in. So there's already been strong application of the new AI, that's artificial intelligence, as well as the old AI, artificial insemination.
Just one other commentary of what he shared was that because he's the expert at the thing and he's not asking it for new information, right, he can review it and say, is this right? And I think that that's your role too.
Yeah, so you don't want those hallucinations where it starts, inventing things that you're, of course, with 6 legs and wings, really wouldn't be so good. But thanks, that's a great suggestion.
Hi, you mentioned that the vets aren't really keen on your testing, and so you need that peer review studies. What are you doing to get those peer review studies?
Okay, so I showed you where we are on P4. We are in a quiet period on another one we can't talk about, but we have some other data, like there's a collagen variant that we've reproduced a human assay using cultured fibroblasts. And, so what happens is, we say, well, why don't we spend some money on this and see if it's going to work? And we do, and we get like the zebrafish result or the fibroblast result, and we just need to raise more money. So that's one of the things that's stopping us is it's very expensive to do this. And at the same time, we're paying patent development fees. So that is slowing us down. But I think the quality, we know what the threshold of publication is, and we're going to publish in quality journals. And I think that's going to have a big effect, but it's just taking longer and more money than we had hoped. Hey, whoa, that's never happened in a startup, has it?
Well, thank you.
Hello, I'm David Danneman with Rosetta Design Group. We do protein engineering and computational protein design for custom proteins. I've been doing modeling of proteins for 20 years now, so I take a little bit of offense saying that we've only do it the last 4 years.
Right.
I do agree, though, that AlphaFold was a major revolution in the field, and it's running on my computer back home now. My question is about business, though. You mentioned that you have fixed costs, and so your margins are just going to increase from here. But your kit is a consumable, assays are multiplicative in price.
Right.
Why? Can you explain that a little bit more?
Right. So for any given test, there's cost for that test. We have to pay the lab that does the assay. We sell the kit. There's postage. There's all kind of stuff. But on top of all of those operations, there's rent, there's patent development, there's research costs. So those costs are as much money as we can come up with spread over the number of tests we sell. If we sell more tests, the margins will improve. The individual test costs don't change.
Right.
But the overhead costs are less on higher volume. That's all. Does that make sense to everybody?
Perfect. So now to science. All right. Sort of. You mentioned your kit costs $300, but it costs $1,000 for a whole genome.
Right.
Why not just do the whole genome and charge people $1,000?
Well, what we'd like to do is do a whole genome and charge people $2,000, and it's basically a subscription. It's like when we find new things, we'll tell you, right? So we have looked into that. We just haven't done it yet because we can't. We're not set up to do a reasonable turnaround on that. And I think when we've communicated with horse people, our test is allele-specific quantitative PCR for 6 variants, and some people think their horse was sequenced. And they don't understand, you know, like you and I know what sequencing means. How many people here know what having your genome sequenced means? Okay, hands down. How many people have had their genome sequenced? Really? We got to talk, right? So that's still uncommon. I was done in 2012, and I thought by, 10 years from now, everybody will be sequenced. And it's 12 years from now, and almost nobody's sequenced, right? So, that's a possibility. What we are aiming at doing in the medium term, and thank you for asking the question, is we're going to a chip, right? So Illumina has a bead array that lets you, instead of doing 6 allele-specific quantitative PCR tests in parallel, you would do, thousands of tests on the Illumina bead array platform. And Generatio, our patent licensee in Germany, is already doing that. When we do that, we will have hundreds of experimental variants on the chip. So what that means is every time somebody pays for a horse test, they're also helping us do research on the incidence of other variants. As the evidence for the other variants being pathogenic increases, we will turn them into tests and we will sell those. If people have had their horse done on the chip, it's just a software talk. It's like, oh, we have DNA. Let's test your horse for this, but we're not testing DNA. We're just pushing a software toggle button to reveal the results. So that will be a cool mechanism for generating sales.
Awesome. Final question. Why not gene therapy to treat horses?
Because you can buy a quarter horse at a claiming race for $1,000. And gene therapy for sickle cell anemia is $3 million, right? And that's been worked out a long time ago. The other thing is that, for example, for the variants that we're dealing with, they're semi-dominant. And the reason is they're not loss of function, they're gain of function mutations. Sorry, I'm losing people. But they're misfolded proteins. And what they do is they start recruiting other muscle proteins into aggregates, throws off the stoichiometry of muscle assembly, and you get crummy muscles. And that's what's happening. So if you put extra copies of the wild type gene in, it wouldn't improve the situation. You still have a toxic misfolded protein. So probably what's happening is, as you may know, there's a decline in the protein quality system, cellular protein quality system with age. And we would probably look into, are there variants in the protein quality system? Make sure that there are. And that explains why some horses with these variants are worse off than others. So that's another set of genes we'd be looking into. But yeah, I cannot imagine that gene therapy will be economical for horses anytime in the near future, especially because horses are bred intentionally. So that's why they test before you breed. Don't breed a horse that's going to have these, or if you have a champion horse that has one variant, breed into a horse that doesn't, that has 2 wild type copies of the variant. So you don't, you have a 50-50 chance of getting a horse with 1 copy. You're not assured of getting a horse with 2 copies. Right, so that kind of thing over time will reduce the incidence of this disease in horses.
Thank you.
Hi, Clifton Chadwick with Comunicaciones Cocopelli. First time I saw Paul was at a pitch competition 12 years ago, maybe. And he had a product that was going to identify this disease for sellers of horses. And I said, oof, Paul, sellers of horses. I didn't tell you this, but I'm going, sellers of horses don't want to know about the defects of the product they're trying to sell. I don't think you got a market there. And so I'd just like to comment on how fortunate this group is to have Paul modeling the behavior as you've gone through all of these pivots, all of these changes. I had one question. You said 80% are individuals and 20% are the breeders and the vets.
Yep.
And I believe you said the 80% is responsible for 50% of sales?
Roughly.
And I'm pretty confident that as you dive into that 20%, you're going to see 80% coming out of them. And then you'll have the classic Pareto principle. And, none of this has happened because Paul let go. So kudos to you. And also kudos to Paul for guiding many of us through the changes in COVID over the 2 years that happened. So anyway, congrats.
Well, thank you. And as far as letting go, you shouldn't let go of your authentically founded scientific conviction that a small company could make a difference in horse health using genomics, right? I mean, that's a no-brainer. There's other stuff that might be in your way that you have to let go of.
definitely gotta let go of that stuff.
Steve with Beyond Energy. So I've known you for a long time as well. And I've owned a couple of racehorses back in the day. I like the mosquitoes so much. So what is the low lying fruit and what is that process like? Because, you know, I've done real estate also, and I like the idea of having the horses inspected before you buy it. What's that process like and how people find out about it?
Okay, so to get back to the comment about the breeders, right now, the people who mostly want these tests and are brand advocates on Facebook, they are horse owners who've had affected horses and they're sick of this, right? The breeders, of course, as you pointed out, you know, if you go up to them and say, "Hi, will you give us $300 and we can tell you what's wrong with your horse?" They say, "If you set foot on my farm, I'll fill your ass with buckshot," right? So that's not a good sales pitch, but there's pressure coming on from buyers. So what happens now is in a pre-purchase exam, people say, "I want to test this." And the seller says, "Okay, we'll write a contract. We'll give you 2 weeks and we can deliver the results within that time frame." And we've let people say yes or no. And as that pressure on breeders increases, breeders will realize they get a premium for clean horses. And some of them have already done that, but they're kind of waiting for more pressure from the buyers and they're waiting for the vets to say yes. And of course, the not low-hanging fruit, the big enchilada is the breed societies. If the American Quarter Horse Association required our test of stallions seeking registration, we'd have top-line revenue of $20 million a year.
And so you showed that the box and stuff like that. So what do people get right now? So they hear about it, they go online. What exactly are they buying? What is that process like right now?
What they get is instructions, you know, pull horsehair, put it in a plastic bag or an envelope, print this order form, fill it out and mail it to us. That sounds kind of low tech, doesn't it? Yeah, but they're getting a good DNA test, right? So it just doesn't look like a product from a company. And I think if, you know, when we have this box and we're at a horse show or if people say, "Yeah, I want a kit," if they're in a hurry for a pre-purchase exam, they don't want to wait for the kit to reach them. So they'll just mail in the hair, you know, but if they're not in a hurry and they want something that looks like a product that they can show to their friends, that's where we are. So it will be, you know, it doesn't differ in terms of what is done in terms of the test, but I think it differs in terms of the fields. You know, the number that shows up in a spreadsheet, oh, now you got postage, you paid for these kits and all that stuff. But I don't know, I look at what's worked on me for marketing and I'm like, this feels different from following instructions to stuff hair in a bag and mail it with a paper form. That just doesn't feel right.
I just want to say. So imagine like the COVID test and stuff like that, they sent out all those boxes. And then this is something that'd be available at like feed stores and stuff like that. So you go around and you can see that on the shelf.
You know, that was suggested to me at the Arrowhead Sprint, but I've had people advise me on the big costs of putting anything in a retail location. They said maybe the best thing you could do is just put a QR code in there and then, you know, give them a kickback every time somebody scans it and orders a test. So, you know, that's going to require some study, but we'll be able to roll it out for horse shows and for online sales. Maybe we'll even get it on Amazon. I'll have to see how bad that is, right? And that's going to be the way to go up. Retail locations like Tractor Supply would be fabulous, but I don't know whether we'll get there. You can get an Embark kit at Walmart, I'm told.
We'll chat later because the Beyond Energy I have it on TikTok Shop, Amazon, and all websites. So we'll chat later. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Wow.
Hi, Michael Bernstein. I'm with the APQ plan. Chuck over there. So I've got a question basically about the packaging. Okay, so you've got patents or patents in the works.
Pending, yep.
And I assume they all have to do with the science, right?
Yep.
Okay, so that packaging that you copied, did you check to see if there were patents on the packaging?
No, I'm sure their images are copyright.
No, I mean
a patent on the packaging. No, I did not.
Yeah, you might want to check that before you get per.
Yeah.
Not just regular patents, but also design patents.
Yep.
That's pretty much it.
Good. Thanks for warning. There's landmines. Thanks.
Good morning. I'm Barbara Dawson with Purple Mulch. And I've got a question. You answered a question and I went, oh, because I think you said that if two horses have the same sequence, you're going to get a horse that has the muscle disease. But if you can breed a horse that has one condition with a horse that has nothing in their sequence, then you can get horses that don't have the muscle disease. Did I understand that right?
Close. It's math involving multiplying fractions. So if you have a horse, let's just take simple case. You have a horse that has one copy of P4 and you have two possible horses to mate it to.
One has one copy of P4 and one doesn't. If you made it to the horse that has P4, you have a 1 chance in 4 of getting a horse that has 2 copies of P4, which is terrible. And you have a 50% chance of getting a horse that has 1 copy. If you made to a horse that is clear, you have a 50% chance of a horse that has 1 copy and a 50% chance of a horse that's clear. So over the course of several generations, as long as you're selling off the affected horses and keeping the unaffected ones for your breeding stock, you will clear your breeding stock of the variants. The reason you want to do it this way, you don't want to just eliminate all horses that are positive from the breeding pool. There's been a severe bottleneck in horse genetic diversity. Just a paper just came out about 6 weeks ago that says the genetic load in horses, so the number of harmful mutations per genome, is twice what it is in humans. And our species is nothing to be proud of because we were bottlenecked about 190,000 years ago. There were 1,200 individuals. And so our species has quite a bit less genetic diversity than most other species, and horses even worse because we touched it and we kill everything we touch.
So when you talk about going to breeders and they say, stay away, I'm going to shoot you with a shotgun, get off my property. I'm thinking if you focus on the positive of what you're allowing them to do. Right. So you do that, correct?
Oh,
when you're approaching them? Yeah. Okay, good. Just checking.
So yeah, some of the breeders jumped on it right away. They thought, we'll get a premium for clean horses. It'll be cheaper to do that right now than it'll be when everybody's trying to do it. And and they will be able to ultimately, I know one Appaloosa operation that is completely clean and is producing clean horses for people. There's a couple other operations like that.
That's a good story.
Yeah.
Good. Last one. Okay, I have a non-sciencey question. What's a piece of information or a new awareness or something that has been sparked within you in the last 6 to 8 months or so that you can share with the rest of us to keep the rest of us going?
Keep the rest of you going for what? One of the things, that I talked about last week is that if you're a regular watcher of TV news, there's just crime and death and everything that leads every night. And you think the world is worse than it is. If you follow the science news, just for the past year, it's been crazy. We have vaccines against malaria. We have gene therapy that cures blindness, deafness, sickle cell anemia, and Duchenne muscular dystrophy, right? All this stuff that we used to fantasize about in grad school is happening. So, I would say if you're doing something challenging where you're going to frequently get threats, setbacks, and all that kind of stuff, just take the high road at all times. And never engage in negative behavior on the internet. And there comes a point in the development of your company where you've taken care of lots of things, and the last stuff that is a problem is you, and you have to take care of that. And that's harder. And I encourage all of you to do that. So that a startup is a marathon, not a sprint. No one's ever won a marathon carrying an anvil. So you got to let that stuff go. If it doesn't fit in the overhead compartment or in the seat under the seat in front of you, you got to check your baggage.
And now the important one, red or green?
Well, the default is green, but of course there's some things that only go with red, like carne adobada, for example. But it's like asking, which of your parents do you love more, right? But the only thing that's an abomination to me is Christmas, not the holiday, but having both red and green chilies, like you don't want to offend anybody. It's like, take it and stick it, right?
I love that. We jumped the gun earlier, so if you want to just reiterate your ask for everybody, that would be good.
The ask for everybody is to connect me to anybody in the horse industry. A warm introduction is really, really welcome. And the other thing you can do for me is just keep this community thriving. I've been at this a while now. You can see on my community thanks that I've had a lot of help from a lot of really good people. If you don't think there's anything you could do to help me, please help somebody else. Thank you.
How about newbies? Do we have any newbies? Come on up. We'd like you to introduce yourself. Anybody online is a newbie? Just raise your hand and I'll call on you.
Hi, my name is Dawn Sherry, and I'm here with New Mexico Sports and Wellness. So can I do a plug?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay,
Come
all
over
right.
here a little bit more so they can
Okay.
see you on camera.
Oh, okay.
There you go. You're good.
Oh, okay, yay, hi. So we normally never give out free passes to the club. Has anybody been to Sports and Wellness? Oh, okay, so awesome. So you know who we are. Is anybody a member? Nice. Okay, cool. So talk to these guys. But yeah, we were offering a 2-week pass to try it out, which is like unheard of. So if you're interested in checking out the club for a couple weeks, I'll be here. I'm right over there. Dawn Sherry. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Any other newbies? Anybody online? Uh-oh, you're coming to take the mic.
Hi, everybody. I'm sort of a newbie. I started coming 4 or 5 years ago when I first moved to New Mexico, and this community was fantastic for connecting me with local resources, all the many accelerators and the national labs, and just meeting people and creating great connections. So I've been somewhat absent in the past 2 years, so I'm not proud to say that, but I want to start making a presence again. My company is called Gills. First, my name's Josh Kiefaver. I'm the president of a company called Gills LLC. And we've developed the world's only helmet with an integrated air filtering system. It's patent pending. We're hoping to get the patent issued sometime within the next year. And more importantly, we have a new product, which is sort of an add-on kit that affixes to any full face helmet. And that's also patent pending. And I would love to give a presentation on that and get everyone's input, hopefully within the next 2 or 3 weeks. So thank you.
Josh is a member at or attended at the BioScience Center, so I've been encouraging him to apply. Well, we've proven today that we like technical presentations just as much as anything else, right? I do have a few events I'm happy to share. Seems like the end of the month, you know, all of the events kind of wind down. The beginning of the month, I haven't gotten the newsletters to tell me what the events are. So I did a little bit of research. I have a little bit to share with you. If anybody would like a copy of this document, just email me at lisa@fatpipeabq.com because the document has links where you can register. Activate NM Space Fiesta. That's tomorrow. Yeah, today's June 5th. Tomorrow at the Rail Yard. So that will be fun. NMTC, their early tickets for their tech summit, which happens in September, but early tickets went on sale yesterday or today, I think. So you can get a discount if you register early. That is an amazing event. Last year they had over 600 people. And all kinds of tracks, great information. You can even apply to present if you have something you want to talk about. And then our own Deanna Vincent is going to do a workshop here at Fat Pipe ABQ on the things to do before taking your business out in public. So that will be fun. There's a link to register there as well. Catharsis Media is missing today. I don't know what happened to them, but normally they are here to record our sessions, and they also put them on their Comcast channel for Catharsis Media. And apparently there are links online that you can go and search if you presented in the last 6 or 8 months. Sorry, Paul, I guess yours won't be there today, but we'll get your Zoom up. Does anybody else have an announcement they want to announce? Come on up. Is that what you're waiting for?
I'm Barbara. Again, I don't have an announcement. I have a request. I am putting together a Google sheet for some high schoolers to look at how they manage money. And I'm looking for someone that understands the programming language of ifs, buts, ands, if-thens, all that stuff. So I can put it
in Excel?
In Google Sheets.
Oh.
So that I'm seeing you right, you're nodding your head. If you could, okay, you're gonna charge me money for it, all right.
AI will help you.
I've been asking AI and I've asked AI and asked AI, and AI just gives me all kinds of suggestions.
You're asking the right AI, right?
I'll make a referral to you.
Okay, thank you.
Help you over lunch.
Oh, okay, thank you. And anybody else who's willing to, give me free services, I would appreciate that too.
Brian Steiner of Noventum Custom Software.
Over a little bit, they can see.
Matthew is going to be focusing more on operations. So we're looking for somebody to take over some of the marketing and administrative work. So we're opening up a job posting for that. Going to start promoting. So if you guys know of anybody that wants to do marketing, administrative types of office sort of organization for a software company, let me know. Thanks.
It's the beginning of the month, and this month is filled with free Shakespeare at the New Mexico Veterans Memorial on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Friday and Sunday will be The Tempest, the story of Prospero doing magic and whatnot. Thursdays, the Merry Wives of Windsor will be at the Old Town Gazebo, I believe on the 13th, and at the new stage at Winrock on the subsequent 2 Thursdays. And then we'll be at the Veterans Memorial on Saturday nights, where you get to hear me say, briefly, I do plan to make love to her. I spy entertainment in her. She gives the leer of invitation. Words of that nature.
Nice.
And
awesome.
Here's things if you want to take a picture.
Anybody else? Any events to announce? Okay, Paul, let's wrap it up.
Okay, well, you know all about me, but I want to close with a shout out. Anybody know about Hoonify? Raise your hand. Who's heard of Hoonify? Yeah, I hear a shout from on back. Anybody see the new? Well, if you haven't heard of Hoonify, you haven't seen the news. They closed a $3.8 million round. So this is a bunch of geeks from one of the national labs, you know, some of whom can barely pass a Turing test. And they finally put it all together and got someone to say yes and write a very large check. So Hoonify's business is to put a supercomputer on your desktop. So when you talk to them, you're like, how many supercomputers are there in the world? And they say about 500. And say, okay, what would a company do with a supercomputer? Like, well, you know, imagine that they were a trading firm, or you know, in this case, they were a film maker. As you know, there's a lot of computation that goes into film, and if you had a supercomputer on your desktop, you could make more movies and make more money. And so they finally succeeded in communicating to people what a supercomputer was and what it could do for them. And it has started, and I'd say watch their taillights. So congratulations, Hoonify. They've never dropped in here to give a talk because they're in other pitch events, and obviously we can just watch their taillights. But yeah, it's a great thing to see how people with the requisite knowledge and training that was technical could manage to build a business around it. And it was the local entrepreneurial network that helped them to do that. And I hope some of you will experience the same kind of success. Thank you. See you next week.